Hi, this is Ali Arango of Game Visuals. Today I would like to show you how to work with Zdepth in Gdevelop 5. So let's get started. Okay, what you see in front of you is the Gdevelop start screen. When possible, when doing these tutorials, I like to start right from the start screen. First thing we're going to do is select create a new project. This panel here pops up. We're going to scroll down. We're then going to select empty game. Once we click that, we see this project panel popped up here from the side. We're going to focus our attention on scenes, and then this plus right below the scenes button. We're going to click that plus. Now we have this new scene that popped up. This new scene is going to contain our game objects. So we're going to left click on this new scene. And when we did that, now we see this other panel pop up, this objects panel. For this project panel, we can click on this X button and take that project panel away. Just so you know, we can click here and have that project panel come back. I'm going to click the X button again to have that project panel go away. We're going to focus our attention on objects to the right. We're going to click the plus button. When we click this button, we see a bunch of options pop up. We're going to select the sprite option. We're going to go to object name. We're going to change this name to player. We're then going to go to this plus to the right. We're then going to go to the plus to the left side here. And we're going to look for where you have your graphics set up to be your player. I have the graphics set up in this Zdepth tutorial folder, and I'm going to left click on this player here. I'll put these graphics in the description so you can get to these sprites if you want to use these to follow along with the tutorial. With this player graphic selected, I'm going to click open. And now we can see here's our player graphic right here. I want to add a movement or add top-down movement to this player character. This is very easy to do in Gdevelop. I'm going to go up to the top, select behaviors. I'm then going to look to the right and select this plus button. And now we can see a bunch of different behaviors that we can select. I'm going to scroll down. I'm then going to select top-down movement. And then I'm going to scroll down. And all of the default controls are fine. However, I want to turn off this rotate object effect. So I'm going to left click on this check mark next to rotate object. I'm then going to click apply. And now with that done, I'm going to left click on my player. I'm then going to left click and drag to bring the player onto our workspace. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel back. We can see here's this square that makes up our workspace. Our player character is too big, so I'm going to left click on the player character. I'm going to hold shift. By holding shift and selecting the diagonal corner, we can constrain this player's graphics so the player doesn't deform in a way that we don't want it to. So holding shift, I'm moving my mouse to shrink this player character down. And that size, I think, is good for the player character. Okay, now what we want to do is bring in a building, and we're going to use the player character in the building to show how we're going to set up this Zdepth for this Zdepth tutorial in Gdevelop 5. So I'm going to click on this plus button to the right. I'm going to go very similar to before, select sprite. I'm going to change the name of this to building. I'm then going to click plus to the right and then plus to the left like we did before. I'm then going to look for my building graphics, which is on a folder on my desktop. It's in a Gdevelop tutorial folder. I'm then going to click on this building 2 pixels and then click open. Okay, and we don't need to set up any behaviors for this. So we're just going to then click apply. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to left click on this building. We're going to left click and drag to bring the building out. I'm going to hold shift, go to the diagonal corner, very similar to before. And now I'm moving my mouse to scale the building down. I'm going to click on our player character. I'm going to scale the player character down even more. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to left click on the building. I'm going to move this up. I'm then going to right click on the building, select copy, and then right click in a different spot and then paste, because I want to have another version of this building, and that's the easiest way to have another copy of the building and have this building be the same size as this building. Okay, so what is this tutorial about? The easiest way I think is to show you. So I'm going to click the preview button here. Okay, so currently we have our player character. I'm pressing the keys on the keyboard. And you see when I move up to the building, I want to, where Gdevelop is a 2D game engine, what I want to do is to make it seem like the player is going up onto the building, and then when the player gets far enough, I want the player to move to the back of the building. But the way things are set up right now, the player is on the layer beneath the building graphics, and the building graphics are in front. What I want to happen to make this seem more like the player is in 3D space is for when the player comes up to the building to about here, the player's in front of the building, and then when the player moves up more, he moves in back of the building. So that's pretty much what this tutorial is about. Okay, here in Gdevelop, where we're at now is where we set up our graphics. What we want to do is set up the programming to make what we want to happen with Zdepth actually work. So I'm going to go to the new scene events, and to get this going, we want to go through to this button right here, where we can see when we hover over this button, it says add a new empty event. We're going to left click there. And the way that Gdevelop is set up is you have conditions and actions, and because of the way things are set up where you set your conditions and your actions, you're able to, for the most part, make games as well as other apps without actually coding, as in writing code. And this is spectacular. Conditions basically work where you say when this thing happens, and then action pretty much says what to happen when that thing happens. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to go to add condition. We're going to go down to scene, and then we're going to go to at the beginning of the scene. So we're going to select that, and then the rest of these settings are fine. We're then going to click OK. Okay, so basically we're saying, look, at the beginning of the scene, we want something to happen. So now we're going to click on Add Action to set up what we want to happen. What we want to do is go to Common Action for all objects. So I click there. Now we're going to go to Z Order. And now we're going to click on the Z Order to just popped up underneath Z Order. So now the first thing we want to do is set up where, well, we see this action says modify the Z order of an object. So we're going to select building. Okay, now for the modification sign, we're going to select equal or set to. For this value, what we're going to do is go to this blue button to the right. We're going to left click there. We're going to scroll up to common expressions for all objects. Then we're going to go down to where we see position. We're then going to scroll down to where we see Y position. I'm going to left click on Y position, and then I want to work with the Y position of the building. So I'm going to left click here, and when I left click, you can see here's the graphics that we have available to work with currently. So I'm going to select building. Then I'm going to just click away to get this panel to go away. Then I'm going to select done. Okay, so now we have this value set up, and we could have typed right here building dot Y, the parentheses. However, I like the fact that Gdevelop is set up where it tries to make you actually write as little as code as possible. Okay, so now that we have this, to have this Zdepth actually work, what we need to do is put everything that we see here inside a parentheses. So what that means is we're going to go to the end here. We're going